Hello and welcome to the Adventure Games podcast. My name is Seoirse and I'm your host. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Adventure Games podcast. My name is Seoirse and I hope everyone listening or watching is well. For this month's episode, I was delighted to be joined by Ruben from Aruma Studios, an indie studio in the north of Spain. And Ruben spoke to me about his new adventure game, Intruder in Antiquonia, a game which was just released today, if everything went well, on July 8th, 2022. So the game should be available now, but he spoke to me about the game. He spoke to me a little bit of the story, but with no spoilers, about some of the characters, about what makes this game setting authentic, which is set in a small fictional town in Galicia, but they've included some real things that you can only find in Galicia, and about how they got some authentic Galician music, and how he created his own code for the game, and all that beside as well, and about the puzzles, the gameplay, all the typical things. And I really enjoyed speaking with Ruben. He's very easy to speak to and very easy to listen to as well. I think his passion shines through in his interview, and the links will be in the show notes and in the description, so you can check out the game on Steam and the official website if you so wish as well. So now here is at a trailer first. Now, just a note, I didn't have my microphone plugged in, so the sound, you can still hear me, but it's not as good quality as usual. It's not from the microphone, it's from my webcam. So that's why if I sound like I'm far away, it is because I forgot to plug in my microphone. So hopefully it won't happen again, but let's face it, it probably will. But without further ado, here is a trailer of Intruder in Antiquonia, followed by my interview with Ruben. So please enjoy. So I am delighted to be joined by Ruben from Aruma Studios, the developers of Intruder in Antiquonia, which is coming out in July 2022. How are you, Ruben? How are you doing today?
I'm very good. Thank you for inviting me, Seoirse.
Thank you. Wow, that's perfect pronunciation, better than a lot of Irish people. It's almost like we practiced.
Not at all.
No, as I discussed in this podcast, probably one of the only questions people have is, how do we pronounce your name? It's because it's not pronounced the way it's spelled. Unlike Spanish words, Irish is very different. It's a completely insane language. But I'm doing very well, and thank you for joining me. As I told you before, I was really looking forward to your game Intruder in Antiquonia, and you were very kind to send me an early copy of the game, and I'm really enjoying it. And we'll, for a few reasons which we'll discuss now, and I'm looking forward to finding out more about the game. But first, before we get to talking about the game itself, I just wanted to ask If you could give a quick introduction to yourself, what's your background and what, if any, favorite adventure games you might have, either that you played growing up or any recent games you played any. So yeah, over to you, Ruben.
So yeah, my name is Ruben Lopez. I'm from Spain, and I'm a software engineer. So what I do for a living, what I did for a living before getting into games was programming, and nowadays I do video games full time with my wife. She joined me in this adventure. So together we built this studio, Aruma Studios, when we came back to Spain after a long period living abroad in Switzerland. And we took this opportunity of coming back to our land to start this company together and decide to try and do video games for a change.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you are, because as I said, it's looking really good.
And you asked me about my
favorite adventure games. This is usually the most difficult question that people tell me.
I know. Actually, there is one that I think you will know because you have yourself a background in Spain, and it's called the Abbey of Crime, in Spanish, La Abadía del Crimen.
I think I know I think it's the Abbey in English on its own. I think, yes. Sorry, go ahead.
So this is a super old game. I used to play it in my Amstrad CPC with 64 kilobytes of RAM. And it's not exactly a point-and-click adventure because back then we didn't have a mouse to play with a computer, but the mechanics are very similar. It's the same kind of adventure with the same exploration and talking to people and etc. Right? And that was my first exposure to adventure games. And I back then, when my father came with this computer at home, I used to play not that many games. I was more interested in figuring out how do I do this programming thing with this computer. It had books that you could read with instructions on how to program the computer. And I was trying to get a sense of how to do that. I was 6, so I couldn't read that much, actually. I couldn't read any English. So the book that came in English, that was totally out of reach for me. But from the other one, I could copy and paste some code and see what it did and so on. But this particular game, the Abbey, that one hooked me for a very long time. I can't remember if I finished it, but I do remember that I did play it for a very long time. And it was a bit annoying because every time you stop playing and turn off the computer, it didn't have save games. So I had to start from the beginning again.
Oh, yeah. That's one great thing about your game, that you have both manual and automatic saves. So thank you for that, because I've mentioned on the podcast several times that if games that only have automatic saves or no saves in this case, in this game, that it's very frustrating. I think I might be thinking of another game that was released about 10, 15 years ago, maybe called The Abbey. It was about when you go literally to an abbey and had these cartoon graphics. So that's probably a different game.
No, this one was, I don't know if you can even call it pixel art, because it was like very, very olden days.
I'll have to check it out. Screens. What's it called again? Sorry, the Abbey of...
The Abbey of Crime, La Abadía del Crimen in Spanish.
I'll have to check it out.
It's based on The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco.
Yes.
So it's kind of the same story, but with an adventure setting. And it was super fun. I think it was my first exposure to adventures. And of course, from there on, then the PC came home, and the first game that came, like the first adventure game that came to my PC was Monkey Island. So
I've heard of it.
Probably what 90% of people would mention, right?
Yeah, no.
And then Loom, and then Monkey 2, and so on. So I played all of the Lucas classics, also some of the Sierra ones, although those did frustrate me a little bit because sometimes you get stuck and you forgot to say, oh my God, this is the Abbey of Crime all over again. I have to start from the beginning.
Yeah, with the dead ends. Yeah, I don't think, especially the early Sierra games, I don't think they have aged quite as well. I mean, they still have some very good things about them. And I played them, quite recently, some of them as well. But nowadays, if I played them, I played them with a walkthrough. Because I said before, life is too short to play, especially early Sierra games, without a walkthrough. We just don't have time to go back with dead ends. And but I have to check that game out. Sounds very interesting. And I believe you mentioned on the website that you played, was it Maniac Mansion with your father? as
Yeah,
well?
Maniac Mansion and Monkey Island, like all of the Lucas classics. My father would bring them home and we would play them together. Sometimes I would play alone, and then he would play alone for a little bit, and we would make progress independently, and then we would get together and make progress
Oh,
together.
lovely.
I like the part where we were playing together. That was the one that I loved the most, because then
Yeah.
at times he would get stuck, and then I would figure out the solution to the puzzle. It's like, I was smarter than you. These moments, being smarter than your father.
Oh, of course, it's
It
it
feels
is.
so
It
great.
feels so good. Yeah, no, I didn't play many adventure games with my father. I played, I mean, he was always busy. I don't think he was really into games, but we played a game called Road to India, which is not a very good game, unfortunately, but still, I have fond memories of that game because it's one of
Yeah.
the few games that I played with my father. But I think that might have turned him off. I hope those developers aren't listening because I might have to replay it just to see. But before we get talk about your game, you said you were programming at 6 years old. So you
I
weren't.
started copying and pasting code from a book into the computer, and then modifying it a little bit to see what happened. I wouldn't call that
Wow. Oh, but
programming,
still, so you weren't reading. You said at 6, but you were coding, and you were
and I didn't understand the code that I was writing. I just knew that if I change the numbers, if I change the letters, it wouldn't work anymore. But if I change the numbers, it would do different things. So that's how I
Wow.
started.
Oh, well, that's great. And then it became a programmer. Now you're making this game, Intruder in Antiquonia.
Yeah.
So you said and again, I love it, when you said that you're starting with your wife, that so your wife also has a passion for adventure games, does she, I presume?
No, not
No.
really.
Oh, really? Oh.
I am the gamer in the family, but she always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So
Oh.
we merged together my passion for games and her passion for her interest in becoming an entrepreneur, and we said, okay, let's put these things together. We build video games.
So she's doing the business side of it, and you're doing the
Yeah.
making the game. Oh, that's great. Still, that's so you're doing two different sides of the business.
Yeah, totally.
And how is it working with your wife? Would you recommend it, or so far?
Well, in our case, it's working perfectly fine.
Right. Well, like there are other
we
examples, Laurie and Corey Cole, for example, and Robert Holmes and Jane Jensen and others. So yeah.
No, for us it works really, really well. I mean, of course, I keep bringing work at any random time, but she always says, "Okay, you just have to stop talking about work right now."
Yeah. We're having dinner now. Let's talk about something else. No,
So
fantastic.
she has a cold head and I don't.
No, but it's great to hear. And so, where did the name Aruma Studios come from? Are you able to tell us what it means and how you came up with that name?
Yeah, so because we were coming back to Galicia, we wanted to find a name that would sound Galician, and Aruma is very similar to Arume, which is the ash that goes when you make a fire, the ash that goes up from the fire. So that's Arume, and that's where the name came from. We love that word quite a bit, and we modified it a little bit to turn it into Aruma.
Yeah,
and
lovely.
it's studios in plural because I mean that's not so nice, right? We made it studios in plural because my wife said maybe someday we do more things than just video games, so let's not restrict ourselves to just one thing, and that's why we made it plural. Although I don't know when we will branch into other things.
Yeah, well, look, you're starting with the game, and who knows, after the release of the game, you might branch out into maybe films or anything, or other multimedia or anything else.
Yeah, I mean, my wife has a lot of experience in movies. She was a producer for movies, so yeah, that's something that could happen at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, well, very best of luck with that. So, so as I mentioned, we're here to talk about Intruder in Antiquonia, which, as I said, I am enjoying very much. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm enjoying it very much. So I'll leave it over to you because I don't want to give any spoilers. So I will put the responsibility back on you, the creator of this game. What can you tell people listening about the game, about the story and the setting of the game? What can you tell us?
Yeah, so it's a game that is located in this very particular town that's inspired by the northwest of Spain, the region called Galicia. And in this particular town, of course, it's a fictional town, and in this town, people don't like the internet at all, and they kind of don't like modern technology in general, but particularly with the internet, they have something, right? And in this setting, Sarah, who is the protagonist, is going to be found lying unconscious on the road that leads to Antiquania, and then she will be found by Karim, the ambulance driver, the only one in town, and then they will figure out that she has amnesia, a very specific type of amnesia that doesn't let her remember like her specific memories, but she can't remember who's the president and whatnot. And yeah, and then the initial goal of the game is to figure out who you are, what's your past, and then you have to solve a series of puzzles, and you learn more and more information until, of course, story will do some twists, and then it gets a bit more interesting. I think you didn't get to that part yet, so I don't want to spoil it for you either.
Yeah, no, I mean, there have been some interesting kind of, well, it's still more in the mystery side of it, that, you know, still trying to figure out what is happening, what is going on. But yeah, no, I mean, I love mystery stories. I'm a huge murder mystery fan and mystery in general. So already you got me with the mystery of who she is and what is happening. But yeah, no, I really enjoy the setting as well. And we spoke about this on the podcast, that now with developers all around the world, you know, not just in the United States and the UK, but from all around the world now, that are releasing games to a worldwide audience, that you can set games in the regions where you're from. So we had Crowns and Pawns released it a few weeks ago, set mainly in Lithuania. I played a game, Skabma Snowfall, set in Finland with the Sami people. And now this game, Intruder in Antiquonia, set in Galicia. So what is it about Galicia I really want to, I mean, I know you're from there, but what was it about Galicia that you made you want to set the game here? Are there any reasons in particular?
Yeah, so we actually spoke briefly about this before we started the podcast. And the majority of people, when they think of Spain, they think of the sunny side of Spain, the beach and the warm weather and all of
flamenco.
That, right? Exactly. And I wanted to break a little bit with that and say, hey, Spain is way more than just that, right? And there's other regions that look completely different. Like if you look at a picture of Galicia, sometimes you might even think that this is Ireland, right?
Yes,
because it's all green, it rains a lot.
Like in Ireland, yep.
So that's what we wanted to convey, right? That Spain is way more than just the beach and the sun and the resorts and all of that.
Yeah, no, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the beach, and I've been to those places as well, and you know, I've you know, there's you know, different things as well. You know, as mentioned, you know, flamenco and bullfighting, but as you mentioned, there's a lot more to Spain. For example, I worked in the region right next to Galicia in Asturias, where Oviedo and Gijón are. I worked there for a few, and what surprised me was that they're Celts. They have Celtic ancestry. And they play the bagpipes and they wear the kilts, you know, traditional clothing. And I did not know that. I was shocked. And that's what I love about Spain as well. And then, as you mentioned, Galicia itself, you know, people think of Spain, they think sun, good weather. But from my understanding of Galicia, like in, I think, Asturias and then the Basque region where my mom is from, it's not always like that. And do we see anything in the game in Antiquonia that might be representative of Galicia, or things that you might only find in Galicia?
Yeah, there's a few things. So for once, the music is very, very inspired by Galicia, and there is even a part when there is these three old men in the main square that sing this weird anthem. And actually, when they sing the anthem, there is a song that starts playing, which is very similar to a very traditional Galician song called Muñeira. And in the game, it plays with different instruments. It's not exactly the same because it would be played with a bagpipe, actually. And we don't play with the bagpipe, we use different instruments. But yeah, it's the same kind of melody that you would have in a Muñeira. And there is also a bar in town that is half a bar and half a grocery store. And this is super typical of Galicia. Nowadays, not so much, but I remember when I was a kid and I was growing up that we would go to buy the groceries to this place that was half bar and half grocery store, and you would just sometimes it was divided and sometimes it wasn't. Ours was actually divided with one of these doors, like in the Western movies that move this way, right?
Yeah.
So you go to the grocery store, and then if you cross that door to get to the bar, and then there is people drinking and so on, right? But it was always the same establishment doing both things, and we captured that also in the game.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. I don't think I've seen that in when I've been to Bilbao. I mean, it's possible that they do, but yeah, no, that's great. So you have some elements of the culture in Galicia in the game that people can. And sorry, I told you before we started recording as well that it reminded me of a small town where my mother's family was originally from. It's a very small town in the mountains outside Bilbao called Urduña. And it's rural as well. It's a very beautiful town, but I could imagine that town not having internet. That the people, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, because it's so rural. And but what I like from the game when I played as well, like the people in that town, even though they're traditional, a lot of older people, they're very nice. And what I got from the game is that the characters, they're not disrespectful to the main character. They're still nice. The three old men were very funny. That they're still very nice as well. Did you base their characters on any characters in real life, or was it people from town?
Not specific people, but not the specific people, but the three old men are actually kind of the standard Galician old person. That you go there, you ask them a very simple question. They can answer with yes or no, and 15 minutes later they're still talking and they didn't answer your question.
Yes.
So we try to capture that in the game without going to the point that it gets annoying. But every time you go there and ask them anything, they go in rounds for a little bit before they actually say what you need to know.
Yeah, no, I think you captured that, because for me at least it didn't become annoying. It was funny, and I just loved speaking with them as well. And then the name Antiquonia, because you mentioned that there's no internet. Or at least that most of the people don't want internet. I think it's probably best to say that you can still have internet, Karim, for example. But was the name Antiquonia, because that seems similar to Antique. Is that a coincidence, or was that named in
so
purpose?
The name Antiquania actually came from the writers. We did a first version of the script, and then we handed it over to professional writers who actually elevated it to the next level. And they had this great idea, because they used to watch a TV show here in Spain where they had this fictional town called Antiquania with a G rather than a Q. And then they thought, let's change the G with a Q, and then we go with that, because it was this super funny town in that radio show. It was this super funny town where everything weird would happen. They thought that it was very, very fitting.
Yeah, no, it's I think definitely it's very fitting. And also I remember reading about in Spain that there are ghost towns. So it could be similar, that there are some towns that there aren't many people, that was mainly just older people. Was that any inspiration, or was it just
Not the ghost towns, no.
Okay, maybe not quite a ghost town. But one of the things as well, as speaking with the characters, and I know we don't want to speak too much about the characters, because the whole thing is a mystery about who is Sarah. Why does she have amnesia? Which I still haven't found out myself. But what the other character, Karim, you mentioned. Am I correct in saying is that he is a character, an immigrant, or from outside of Spain?
Yes, he is. Yeah. He's an immigrant. Well, actually, he was born in Spain, but this is not said in the game explicitly. But we wrote like a full background for each of the characters before we started writing the story, to make sure that everything was consistent. And he was born in Spain, but his parents are not from Spain. And that's why he's called Karim. They picked a name that actually comes from where he's from, which is Morocco.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, but I really like that, because it felt more realistic. That's more representative as well of Spain, because when you go to Spain, you see people like Karim who are working, as ambulance drivers, as doctors, or as in shops as well. That You know, it really, for me, it helped to make the game feel more realistic. So I personally really liked it. But you say he's from Morocco. I don't think I've got
No,
that.
well, he was born in Spain in
Well, I thought
this
he's born in
backstory
Spain.
that
Yes,
we wrote for
yes,
him.
yes,
But his
yes.
parents are from Morocco. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's no, but that's what I really liked as well. So I like the characters, but and the setting. So that's one of the reasons. But yeah, I don't want to say too much about the story because I don't want to give anything away. But another thing that I like about the game, and you mentioned as well, is that the puzzles, that there's no real moon logic, that you don't have to go, oh wait, where did this come from? As well. So what was your idea about the puzzles and integrating them into the story and into the game? You know, how did you go about trying to make them realistic and logical? And so again, what's your opinion on puzzles as well? Like, did you try to make them more easier or difficult? Or
So yeah, we try to make them not too difficult because the focus of the game is on the story, but we wanted to have puzzles because we want the game to be entertaining, not just Windows Assistant where you do next, 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 and right. And what we did wanted the puzzles to be integrated with the story in a way that whenever you're solving a puzzle and you think, okay, why am I solving this puzzle? What's the meaning of solving this puzzle? And there is always some roots in the story. There is always some meaning that has to do with the story. You know, at some point, I think you already got to that point where you have to do a little bit of a scavenger hunt around the town to find a few things, and you still don't know why, but there's a reason for that. There is a reason
yeah.
why you have to do all of that. There is a person that like a black hand, so to speak, that left those things there, so you have to find them. Yeah.
No, well, I'm very curious to find out more. Yeah, no, it's as you mentioned, you know, the focus was on the story, that we that there was no point that I thought with the puzzles that, oh, you know, why am I doing this? Although with that puzzle that you meant, scavenger hunt, and I'm not usually a fan of, you know, scavenger hunts or fetch quests because I think, oh, this is just trying to make the game longer. But in this case, it felt like part of the story. It's like this will help you try and find out who you are, as well. And so in general, what is your opinion on puzzles in adventure games? Because we spoke about well, Sierra and LucasArts, and Sierra, you mentioned that, you know, frustrated you and me as well. So because and also what I like about Intruder and Antiquonia is the pacing, that you know, if you come across in my opinion, a really hard kind of illogical puzzle, it can it frustrates you and it kind of sometimes stop caring about the story. Like, oh God, but I never found that in Intruder and Antiquonia. So suppose in general, what is your opinion on, well, okay, maybe not yet. I might email you if I'm stuck. Of course, you know, you need some challenge as well, as you mentioned, but what is your opinion on puzzles in general, I guess? Do you think that there's a place for puzzles?
I like when there is a good variety of difficulties in puzzles, like, because if they are all very easy, then it gets boring, and if they are all very hard, I would go and fetch some some playthrough walkthrough so I can finish them. So yeah, I like them to have this very nice balance of difficulty. And I actually thought that we didn't achieve it in Intruder at first, but then when we did the playtesting with people, I was checking with them how they felt about the balance, and they all coincide on that they had this very nice balance of some difficult, some easier, and that was nice. So yeah, I guess we made it at least for the people who did the playthrough.
Yeah, no, that's good. And so far, I mean, I am terrible usually at puzzles. It's very difficult, but I liked how it felt natural when the characters would give each other advice. That it came across as natural as well. So
yeah, we try to make sure that also there is at least one or two hints for each of the puzzles. So if you get stuck, you can always go around, explore, and then you will find a hint or two that will help you move in the right direction. So because otherwise you will have to reach for the walkthrough, and I don't want that to happen. Like
yeah, no, so some games I suppose would have an in-game hint system, but then other developers are very against that. They're saying no, that will take people out of the game. Now I'm very happy to see that your game also has a hotspot highlighter and you can pause. Again, thank you for that. That is something that most games still don't have. And I was like, please, we forget the door or the phone rings or anything. But
Yeah, so I have to say that many of the things you're thanking me for weren't there on the first version.
oh,
But
really?
after the play testing with people, we learned, oh yeah, we need this and we need that because it's useful to them, and
Yes,
we
I mean
added them.
it's not a game breaker at all for me because I've played many games without, but I think it really does help also for accessibility and that. So,
Mhm.
but what would your thoughts be on an in-game hint system, for example, or the hotspot highlighter? Because I know some people are for them, other developers are very much against them. They say that it takes away the immersion from the game. So, what have you found, even with the playtesters? What has been the reaction?
So none of them asks for for a hint system, for an inline hint system. So I think that's
That's
good.
good.
Maybe they didn't get so
Yeah.
stuck that they would need it. But I have to say that our previous game, which is called Quantum Derail, this one had an inline hint system.
Oh,
And,
okay.
and the problem is that we didn't advertise it very well, and people confused that with a regular mechanic of the game. So you had there was this character, and you could bring him or her, because you never know if her gender, you could bring peanuts to that character, and when you wanted like hints more advanced in the game, you have to give more peanuts. Like at some point you have to give something like I don't know, 30 peanuts, and
Right.
you could get those peanuts by talking to another character, and it was like a kind of a grindy process to get each peanut.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, if I do it that way, people will think twice before using this.
Mm.
No, 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 no. Some people actually got all the peanuts multiple times and then complained that this mechanic was awful. It's like, it's not a mechanic.
Yeah, it's optional. Oh no, but I do like how that you at least try to put sort of not make it easy to get in-game hints that try and say, okay, it's there if you want it, but at least try and do it yourselves first.
Yeah, you have to
You know,
work for it.
exactly. No, that's what I like as well. That if it's too easy, it's like, oh, here's the in-game hint system, or but yeah, and I'm someone who likes in-game hint systems, but then it's like, oh, but it's probably best to work for it as well. But
Yeah, but I personally don't use the inline hint systems. What I remember when I played Thimbleweed Park, that
yes.
there was once that I got stuck and I didn't know how to make progress,
Mm,
and I could use the hint system. But it's like, oh my god, I'm so lazy to use that phone. I will just find a walkthrough and figure it out.
yes, I was the same. I was like, oh, I don't want to call this person, and and then just I just use a walkthrough if I was stuck as well. But oh, and another thing that I like in the game as well, because a lot of times there are references, to Monkey Island and that, but in
Mhm.
this game there is a reference to a modern game which actually hasn't come out yet. I don't know if that's a spoiler, but I really like that.
Hmm.
I don't know if you want to say, or shall we just wait for people to?
Which reference? I'm not sure that I
It's
did it
in
on
the
purpose.
it's in the shop, in the bar shop in Galicia. There's a
Oh,
poster.
yes, 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 yes. Yeah, there is a reference to lucid dreaming. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
that's it. No, I really, really like that. It's like, because it's like, yeah, we've all seen references to Monkey Island and to LucasArts, but personally, I want to see more references to modern adventure games, and I think it's also a nice support for other developers, and I really like
yeah.
that as well for Tom Hardwich. If he's listening or watching,
Mhm.
that I'm looking forward to his game as well.
He's
Um,
very well aware. He chose it actually
oh,
because,
did he?
yeah, at some point we decided to make kind of a contest, and the winner of the contest would get their picture in the bar.
Yeah. Oh, I love
A
that.
picture
Yeah.
of their liking, right? They could choose the picture as long as they had the rights to it. And Tom was the winner because he's in our newsletter. He's
Mm.
one of the people who reads it weekly, and he participated along with everybody else, and he was the winner. And then he chose that picture of lucid dreaming for the poster.
Wow. Well, no, I love it as well, because it is, nice promotion for other developers as well. That doesn't take away from the game, but yeah, no, I really like that. And
And there is another reference actually. to our previous game, to Quantum Derail.
Oh, really?
And that is the Bitcoin. At some point, you get a physical Bitcoin, and that's a
okay.
reference. That's a reference to Quantum Derail, because in that game we also had as a joke a physical Bitcoin.
Okay, now I'll have to check that. Is that game available online?
Yeah. You can play it for free. It's on itch.io.
Okay, I'll have to check it out. But no, that's fantastic. And then another thing I liked about this game are the graphics. That they look, really nice, and I loved the portraits as well of the characters. That the different facial reactions. So, what if you could tell us what for anyone interested, what engine you used and what and how would you describe the graphics? How did you go about creating these portraits and these graphics? So first of all, what engine did you use to make the game?
It's our own engine. We have a custom engine that.
Do you create the engine yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow!
We built it we built it back in the day for this other game, Quantum Derail, which was just a toy project. And when we came here and we decided to make our own game, I explored the alternatives, and I thought that actually our engine would give us some advantages in some areas, especially on testing. So we decided to stick with our own custom engine.
Very nice.
We have to improve it quite a bit, because Quantum Derail is a much simpler game. But still,
that's great. And how did you find using your own engine for the game? Do you think that it really helped, or would you prefer to use maybe Unity or Unreal Engine, or what are the benefits to using your own engine?
So the main benefit is I know the code inside out, and if I need anything at all, I don't need to go to forums, ask people or anything. I just go there and code it. I still have to find one feature that I missed that takes me more than a couple of hours to implement. So yeah, it's really, really fast. But that's because I already wrote this engine like 4 years ago, I think. And I've been iterating on it a lot. I know it very, very, very well. So it's very easy for me to make changes and improve things and add new features.
Cool. And do you have any plans maybe on if anybody else wanted to use the same engine for their game, or has anybody asked you to if they wanted to use that?
Not yet, no. We'll see. Maybe after Intruder they will ask. I don't know. It is not written in a way that is very easy for other people to use. It's written in a way that works for my games, the way I like to make them. Like the inventory, it's only one way, and the conversation system only works in one way, and the other engines have like multiple choices that you can pick from, because they have to cater to all these different developers. So in that sense, it's not ready for prime time. But I mean, if there is interest, I could look at the options, of course.
Yeah, it could be one of the other things your wife mentioned with Aruma Studios. You never know. Now, you mentioned as well about the music in the game, that is typical Galician music. So how did you get the music? Did you find any musicians, or did you get it online, or how did you choose which music and get the music for the game?
Yeah, so we on that regard, we were very, very lucky, because my wife used to work in movies, and she knew a very good musician from Galicia. So we contacted him, and this is the first time he's making a video game. And he was super excited to learn how to adapt the music to video games. And he did his homework before starting to do the music. So that was very useful. And yeah, it was super cool actually working with him. And it was very easy to communicate with him as well. I don't know why, but it was super easy. Maybe because he's also a teacher. And then, so he's very used to communicating with people who don't have a deep musical knowledge. And that maybe it made it easier, but it was super easy to communicate with him, explain the mood that we wanted for the music and what we wanted to convey on each scene and so on. And yeah, it was super fast.
So it was easy to work with him and to tell him what you wanted, and he just gave you the music. That's fantastic.
Like I don't remember a single music in which we needed more than 2 revisions. Like he was like really, really good.
And what's the name of the musician?
He's Juan Ramon Salgueiro.
Oh, very nice. Juan Ramon Salgueiro. Cool. And does he have any website that you know of, or if you wanted to hear his music? Or If not, don't worry.
He has a YouTube channel. I can send you the link if you want afterwards.
Yeah, sure. I'll put it in the show notes and the description if anybody's interested. Cool. And now, just going back of the story. Now, I don't know if you can answer this if it's a spoiler, but so it's a mystery, kind of drama. Were there any inspirations? So from any other stories, any books or movies or TV series, or would that itself be a spoiler if you mentioned the inspirations? So how did you come up with the idea of this mystery?
In a way, yes. So I like a lot the storytelling of Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, and
Yes.
although there aren't that many parallels between our story and Indiana Jones, the way of telling the story, I try to kind of capture the same style of storytelling. And actually, when we talk to the professional writers, they say, okay, do you have any reference of some storytelling style that you want? And we say, yes, Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. And they actually got the game and played it through before starting to work on the script.
Wow. So you got you mentioned there that you got professional writers. Because that's one of the things with with some games that I play, and I think you can tell that they're very passionate, but I've always said maybe they could have got some, if they could afford some professional writers or game writers, even to just go through the script and to help them, So what was the process for you when you chose? How did you choose the professional writers? Were they game writers or were they writers for TV, or how did you go about finding these people?
Yeah, so again, my wife knew them because they worked together in the past.
Contacts.
She has a lot of contacts. That's so useful. and yeah, they have experience in movies and TV, and also they did a video game before ours as well. And so yeah, what we did is we had our first kind of rough story with some of the puzzles and so on, and we gave it to them. And then from there, the first thing they did was to write a full backstory, like what happened before to Sarah and the other characters up to that point. And when we approved that part, which is of course not seeing in the game, then they started polishing the rest of the script. But we had that thing as an anchor to make sure that everything was consistent. And also, if at some point we want to write, a prequel, we already have it.
Yeah, wow, so you said that they worked on another game. Which other game do you know if that they worked on?
I don't remember the name. Sorry.
Oh, don't worry. I was just curious. But no, that's fantastic. What is it like working? Would you recommend maybe other developers or anyone else if they can work with professional writers to do so, or how's your experience?
Yeah, I think it was super easy to work with them. They have a very very professional way of working with different stages. That they first deliver this prequel, and then they give you a first kind of rough script already polished from what you have, and then on top of that, they added themselves some of the puzzles. With a little bit of help from me, and then they added another part with the dialogue at the end. So it was actually kind of cool to work with them.
Cool, yeah, to get different ideas, different perspectives. Very, very nice. And then now in the game as well, there's no voice acting, which is not an issue for me. Because I think first thing, as I spoke with, is the writing. And so do you think that it's what is your opinion on voice acting? Do you think that it's okay obviously for games with no voice acting? Because I believe the developer of Bertram Fiddle, he worked with voice acting, but then he said that it was just too expensive and too time consuming, and he didn't think that his game needed it, that it was just a huge amount of work that and I could be misquoting him, but I believe he said that. So what is your opinion about this as now working on this game?
So the very first version of our budget had voice acting included. But once we started asking for quotes, it was clear that we couldn't afford it. We had at some point we look at the budget and we had to choose between doing the backgrounds or doing the voice acting. It's like, okay, we can live without voice acting, not so much without backgrounds.
Yeah.
So yeah, unfortunately we had to take it out. But what we did to compensate, you alluded to it before, is to add all these emojis on the faces of the characters as they are talking, because actually the writers were also counting on voice acting, and they wrote the script in a particular way, counting that the motion would be given by the voice actors. So when we decided to drop voice acting, they said, okay, now we need something to convey the emotion, otherwise we have to rewrite the script. So that's why we went with these emojis to convey the emotion and bring a little bit of the voice acting back. I think, I mean, from playing many other adventure games, I think the voice acting is super important, and it gives another dimension to the game.
Sure.
It gets you so much into the game. But yeah, in this one we couldn't afford it. I hope on the next one we will be able to afford it.
Oh, we shall see. Now, on the other hand, bad voice acting can really bring a game down. So
right.
It happened with with one of the demos that I played, which I won't mention, but it was fun. But then the voice acting, for example, there was a character who was British, and it's obvious that the voice actor was not British. And I was just, I think it'd be better without voice acting in this case, unless the voice actors are very good and can do like either convincing accents or from the place. Then yeah, I think you made the right decision. But yeah, hopefully, and if Intruder Antiquonia does very well and you have a budget, then would you consider putting in voice acting in this game, or maybe putting it in the next game instead?
So adding it back to Intruder, I don't think so. But if we get good results, the next game will definitely have voice acting. Yes.
Oh well, here's hoping. Now you mentioned about the backgrounds in as well. I don't know how, if I asked that, because we talked about the game engine, but how did you create the backgrounds? Did you draw them yourself, or did you do it using a computer?
So it's done with a computer, but I don't do them myself because I really suck at drawing.
Like
so,
me.
So we hired a talented artist to do that. So we actually have a very interesting setup. We have artists from all over the world, and most of them are not Galician. So we do have an art director who's a friend of ours who's from Galicia, and he's actually coordinating all the artists so that they have this very consistent style, and also a style that reminds you of Galicia. So yeah, the background artist is from Singapore, and she's never been to Galicia, but because we have this great art director, he was able to guide her towards this very cool style. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, no, the backgrounds do look fantastic. So I think, job well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, genuinely. And then now talking about, getting the word, because right now there are so many games and so many adventure games that I know you help each other, promote each other, but I guess it can be hard to get the word out. So how have you gone about marketing? I mean, apart from appearing on interviews and podcasts, but how else have you gone about marketing? And any advice for maybe any other developers that what you've been doing that you think has been working well?
Yeah, so for us, what's working best is social media, specifically Twitter. We tried also Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, even a bit of Reddit, but the one that is working best consistently is Twitter. My impression is that we don't know how to Instagram properly, and that we should learn, because there has to be a way, but we don't know how to do it yet.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, I really should put up more posts, but it's just, for me, so time consuming.
Yeah. So for Twitter, what we do is on Monday we have a meeting. Sylvia, my wife, and we have a meeting, and we plan the social posts for the entire week. And then, in the past, sorry, in the past it was me scheduling, not like posting all the posts throughout the week, and now she's actually managing social media as well, because I have a ton of work with all the other stuff. And she tends to actually schedule them. We use TweetDeck, and with that you can schedule them across the week, so then you don't have to be there every single day pressing the button and copying the contents and so on. And yeah, that's working quite well for us, and that's our main source of traffic. Then we have a newsletter, and that's actually working amazingly well. It's very tiny. We have, I think last time we had 250 subscribers or something like that, but they are super loyal people. Like we post there once a week, and like over half of them read each of the posts. Over time, of course, all of them end up reading some. And then whenever we ask them to help us with something, they just run and do it. I remember when we put out the Steam page, and we told them and we asked them, hey, could you wishlist the game for us, because visibility, Steam, and so on. And we got something like 70 wishlists, all coming from the newsletter. It's like, wow.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's the thing. So even though you said that there was 250 people read the newsletter, they will get the word out to other people, their friends and their followers on social media. It's because there's other developers who appeared did an interview, I think, on YouTube with and these people, I think they only had a few followers, and but what the developers said was that, hey, look, it's still promoting the game, even say if that has 5 followers. If they listen and watch the interview, they could tell another 5 people, and if they liked him too, they could tell another 5. So that's what they said, that they thought that we don't want you to just appear on interviews that have like thousands of listeners, that sometimes even a small amount can help make it bigger.
Yeah. And the newsletter is not just about marketing. Another thing I love about the newsletter is that all these people are kind of walking the walk with me, right? Because every single week I'm telling them about what I'm doing, and every week or maybe every other week, some of them reply and they give me words of encouragement and so on, and that's super cool. It's like, wow.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, that's great. And another thing that you did was you released a demo, which I played and I really enjoyed, and that helped make me more interested in the game, more excited for the game. And I just think for a narrative game, and I've asked other developers this as well, how do you go about releasing a demo, that you ensure that there aren't any spoilers? So some developers I know have a prologue that's not part of the main game, but then that's of course extra work. I guess most probably have the beginning of the game. So how did you guys go about deciding what to include in the demo? And do you think it worked?
So yeah, I will start by saying that we do have a post-mortem document where we add all the bad ideas that we had and all the mistakes we made. And there is a section for the demo there.
Oh, really?
And the reason is that we failed to account for the demo when we were writing the script, and that was a mistake, because when we decided, okay, we want to put out the demo, it was already too late. The script was closed. We already have half of the game implemented and so on. And it's like, okay, so now what do we do, right? A prequel is not possible, because a prequel would actually reveal who Sarah is.
Yeah, it would be the spoiler.
It would be a huge spoiler. So a prequel is not a possibility, or unless we make it so far in the past that we need all new backgrounds and so on, and we didn't have production budget for that. So we said, okay, we have to do the beginning of the game. And then the problem is that from the beginning of the game, there is a point in which you suddenly open 3 puzzles in parallel. The scavenger hunt that we were talking about before, right? So we said, okay, what do we do? Do we include the puzzles in the demo or not? And the thing is, if we include the puzzles in the demo, it's like half of the game in the demo. And if you don't include these puzzles in the demo doesn't have pretty much any puzzle except for talking to people, which is not very puzzly, right? So in the end, we went for the latter and didn't include any puzzle in the demo. And I think this is not doing a very good service to the game, because some people might play the demo and say, there is no puzzles, I don't want this game. So yeah, we need to do better the next time.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand, because when I played the demo, when I was playing this game, I was like, I think this is still the same part of the demo, but I don't remember this puzzle. But at least for me, as I said, and I know I have read some people saying, there should be some puzzles in the demo, but as you said, the other issue is, that's a spoiler by itself, because I think a demo should maybe give you an idea of or taste of what the game, and I think that, you speaking about things that didn't go so well, what I would say is that for me at least, what you did well in the demo is you gave a taste of what the game was like, even though that puzzle wasn't there. But we got to meet the characters and the setting, and kind of got to explore. And after the demo, I was like, oh, okay, so I've got an idea of what to expect. And of course, the whole game, I'm sure there'll be surprises, but I think it worked well for me. And you got ideas, on how to what to include in the game, like the hotspot. Did you get that from the demo, or was that previous before that? About
actually,
hotspot?
yeah. Most of those ideas to improve things that you said are good ideas, but weren't there in the beginning. We detected them when we were doing the testing round for the demo.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it worked out in the end, at least, for me and for the full game. So
yeah. So one of them is actually the automatic save games plus manual save games. In the very first version, we only had the automatic ones.
Oh, well, I'm happy you had the manual.
And somebody asked, hey, why don't you have manual save games? And then we were asking people around, okay, what do you think about these? What do you think they're useful for? And many people came with this very reasonable use case, which is, I like to play the game with my family, and each of us might be in a different point in the game.
That's true.
So it's annoying that we have only automatic save games. And of course, yes. And then I remember playing with my father the games, and I said, no, this has to be there.
Yeah, no, that is very true. I mean, in my case, I like to, if I get interrupted, if there's if I get a phone call and I have to go somewhere, or if I want to finish the game and go to bed or do something, I don't want to go to a certain point that the game tells me. I want to say, okay, at this point I would like to finish. Like reading a book, it's like sometimes I don't wait until I finish a chapter. It's like midway through the chapter, okay, I'm too tired. So that's why I personally like manual save, but I have heard it can be difficult to implement at times, for coding reasons and that. So were there any issues implementing the manual saves on your end?
Not at all.
Oh,
no,
that's
the
good.
saves were very, very easy. The way we wrote the engine, it was very easy. We can actually save at any point in time, even during cinematics and everything. We can save at any moment. There is no problem.
Well, then I think everybody should use your engine. No excuses then not to include manual saves.
So actually, we got this piece of feedback from somebody playing the game asking, hey, I don't see any saving indicator on the screen, so I don't know when the game is saving. I said, don't worry, it's saving all the time. It's always saved.
Okay, no, that's
so
good.
You don't have to worry. And they say, oh, maybe you should say that somewhere, right? And then I put this on the initial screen that tells you the keys and so on, and it has this message at the bottom saying, don't worry, you don't have to save. It's saved all the time.
No, that's really good to hear, because another issue is if it's automatic saves only, and if there's a bug or anything, or you have to quit and then you have to replay the same again, which is, and I haven't come across any bugs in your game. I have to say that as well.
Thank you.
But yeah, no, thank you for that. I suppose, I mean, you've given a lot of advice, I suppose, but did you learn anything from your first game when making Intruder and Antiquonia? You've mentioned how you've improved the game already from feedback and for the demo. Are there anything that you learned from the first game that you're making Intruder and Antiquonia, or have you covered them already?
Oh yeah, there is something that I learned that was super valuable, and it wasn't totally obvious to me at the beginning. So when we tested the demo, the way we tested it was we send the demo to people, they play on their own time and schedule, and then they send feedback back to us, right? And then when we saw some people playing the demo online through YouTube, Twitch, and so on, we actually found bugs, right? Seeing them playing, we found bugs that they weren't even aware that those were bugs in the game. So we thought, okay, maybe we did this wrong, and for the full game, we're going to change things. So for the full game, what we did is we chose fewer people, but we did a session like this one with them. So a video conference where they would be playing the game, sharing the screen, and so we could see how they play, ask questions as they play, and so on. And actually, from only 5 people, we collected 300 bucks.
Wow.
And most of them weren't told by the players. These are bugs that we detected that they didn't even realize.
Wow.
Some of them they would eventually realize later, but at the time when they happened, they didn't notice. So it was super, super useful, and especially being able to ask questions like, for example, what do you think the goal of the game is right now? Which puzzle are you trying to solve? Why are you trying to combine this thing with that thing? Those kind of things gave us a lot of insight in how people think about the puzzles and so on, and gave us a lot of information to improve the puzzles and make sure that all the combinations that people think are reasonable were supported and would do something reasonable as well.
Yeah, fantastic. So try.
So yeah, for me, the biggest advice is, if you can, do playtesting live, either with people next to you or over video conference, but do playtesting live, seeing people play, asking them questions is so useful.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Now I tell developers is don't just go by what I do, because I do some incredibly stupid things, and at times I cannot solve, some puzzle, even if they're very obvious. It happened at Adventure X that I was playing this game and I just couldn't progress, and then the developer told, oh, you have to open the journal, but no, but I see you're stuck here, so I'll take note of that. And I said, don't just go by what I did or didn't do. That if everybody else has no problem, then it can safely say that's not an issue, it's my end. But yeah, no, it's interesting, I'd say, to see how people react to the game. And so where will the game be released? So it's on Steam, correct? Yeah. Is there
That's correct.
Else? Yeah. Do you have any plans of releasing?
So we're considering if it's worth releasing as well on itch.io, because our previous game was also released there, and I think it would be a nice addition. We are still figuring out how to do it for Mac, because Mac on Steam just works, but because they use the Steam launcher and so on. But for itch.io, I think we need to sign the executable, something like that. So it's a little bit of a mess. We have to figure that out. Worst case, maybe we can release only for Windows and Linux on itch.io, which is not ideal, but it's an option. And GOG, well, we talking to other developers, they always say, yeah, if you ask them to add your game, they will say no. If you wait a little bit, they will call you. It's like, okay, we'll wait for them.
Okay, yeah, I've seen other developers of games that look really good, and it's been the opposite. That GOG have said yes, and then it said we love the game, and then afterwards developers, so you love the game, can the game be on GOG? And then they come back and say, no. And it doesn't make any sense.
So what we're doing to make up for that is that even though we are releasing on Steam, the game does not have DRM. So after you download it, you go to the folder of the game and you just copy it whenever you want or run it from there. You don't need the Steam launcher to run it. Of course, if you don't run it from the Steam launcher, you don't have achievements, but at least you can play it whenever you want.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. So you have the choice at least. That's really good to hear. Yeah. And would you like to release it on a Switch or anything, or just PC for the moment?
It would be awesome to launch on the Switch, but first we need to recover some of the investment on PC so we can afford going for the Switch as well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so now after Intruder and Antiquonia, which is being released on July 8th, I believe, so probably might be out by the time this episode goes out. But are you able to say if you have any future plans? I know it might be too early to say specifically, but do you have any other ideas for any other games or maybe other like movies like that your wife was involved in, or and anything else after Intruder and Antiquonia?
Yeah, as you say, there is nothing specific yet, but there is something specific and then many things that are not very specific. So the specific thing is I know that the writers have already a sequel in mind and they would love to write it. So that's one thing. But yeah, we don't know for sure if that's the option we will go with. And then we have a few ideas for other games, some of them based on Galicia, some of them not. And we have to figure out. I mean, if Intruder in Antiquania works great and people want a sequel, we have to do that, of course.
Yeah,
but
I hope so.
In other case, maybe we'll find another option. We'll see.
Yeah, or a prequel, maybe you mentioned.
As well, yeah.
Oh no, well, I really hope so. As I said, I'm really enjoying the game so far, and I suppose I wanted to ask you, obviously, without giving away, how did you? Because the thing about mystery stories is that. They live and die by the revelations maybe at the end, that if it's maybe if people don't buy it, then it's, you know, like murder mysteries as well. If people don't buy the revelations, the ending, it's like, so how did you, I suppose it might be difficult to answer at giving spoilers, but how did you think, okay, yeah, this will work, you know, the revelations of the mystery. How did you go about thinking, yeah, no, this will work, people will like this? Did you, again, was it a lot of testing with people then as well? As I said, I don't know if you can answer that without giving spoilers, but
So it's hard to answer for me because
yeah.
the professional writers are the ones who thought
Right,
that part
right.
out. But what I do know is that writing this sequel before writing the rest of the script, rewriting the rest of the script, that was key to having everything hooked into that. Prequel. I meant the prequel. So having that gives you a hook, so that everything refers to the prequel and everything is consistent. And so when people find the revelations, everything makes sense in context. But other than that, I couldn't tell you how the writers made it so that things are consistent and make sense and people buy them.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, during the testing, we didn't get any complaint about the story not being believable. So that's
okay,
a good sign, I guess.
That's very good sign. And so, did you have the ending in mind when you first wrote the story? Did you have the revelations, or were there changes made with the professional writers?
So on our very first story, we had maybe 90% of the story written, but I couldn't write the ending. I didn't know how to do that. So the professional writers are the ones who figured that part out.
Okay, well, look, a lot of writers do that. So Stephen King, famously, he writes as he goes along. But yeah, no, fantastic. And I suppose my final question is, where can people find you? Now, I will include links in the show notes and in the description on YouTube. But yeah, just for people listening and watching, where can people find, if they want to find out more about the game and yourselves, where can people find you?
So if you search for Antiquonia on the internet, on Google or any other search engine, there is nothing else with that name. So you're going to find us for sure.
There's no real town.
It's hard to spell, but the good thing is that nothing else is named that way. Otherwise, you can search for Aruma Studios on typical social networks, except for TikTok. We are not doing TikTok. We don't know how to.
Yeah.
And then you will find us there.
No, I'm the same. I mean, I can barely use social media as it is, but TikTok, I think that just passed me by. Well, thank you so much, Ruben. We've wanted to speak to you since I heard about the game, and it's been absolutely fantastic. Is there anything else that you would like to mention that we haven't mentioned before, or to people listening or watching, or anything at all that you'd like to say?
Well, maybe just a final call to action. If you have time, please try our demo. And if you like what you see, put us in your wish list.
Yeah, that's the thing. Wish list again. That's what keep reminding people. It's very important, I hear, to wish list a game on Steam. That it really, really helps the developers out. So, well, look, I sincerely hope the game does do well, because I'm really enjoying what I'm playing so far. And based on reaction of other players, I'm sure I'll enjoy it up until the end. But thank you so much for agreeing to speak to me. I had a great time finding out more about, as I said, from my personal experiences in Spain as well. It's great to have a game set in Spain, a kind of a recognizable part of Spain. But thank you so much, Ruben. I had a great time, and had a very, very best of luck with the launch of the game.
Thank you so much as well. It was super fun talking to you, and I enjoyed this time a lot. Thank you.
So that was my interview with Ruben from Aruma Studios. I hope you enjoyed listening or watching to it as well. I had a great time speaking with Ruben, and I hope you enjoyed the interview as much as I enjoyed interviewing him and speaking with him. And as I said at the intro, the game is out now on Steam, so you can click the link in the description or the show notes if you wanted to buy the game. You can also find out more about the game on its website. But I really encourage people to check the game out. I'm really enjoying what I'm playing so far. And yeah, you can check it out on Steam. And so next time I'll be back with Laura and Thomas as we'll be discussing the latest adventure games that we've been playing including Intruder and Antiquonia. I will hopefully have finished by then. And I will be reviewing that game, followed by all the other games that we have been playing. So thank you as always for your support, for listening and watching. Feel free to share and subscribe below on YouTube, and subscribe anywhere you listen to podcasts. And yeah, so that is it then. So thank you as always for your support. Take care, everyone. Until next time, goodbye. So if you like the Adventure Games podcast, then please subscribe, rate, and review. Wherever you listen to podcasts, please leave a review on iTunes if you can, as every review helps, and reviews will help get the word out, especially for adventure game developers who appear on the podcast. Now, you can also follow me on social media. You can follow me on Twitter at AdventGamePod. You can follow me on Facebook at Adventure Games Podcast. You can also follow me on Instagram at Adventure Games Podcast as well. And we're also on Discord at Adventure Games Podcast. So if you are an adventure game developer or adventure game player, you can follow us there. So again, please feel free to retweet and share podcast episodes and the podcast to people who you believe may enjoy it. And you can also find more information about the podcast on www.adventuregamespodcast.com. So until next time, thank you.